Hello, and welcome to this edition of EB-5 Investment Report. I'm your host, Amy Rios. I recently spoke with Congresswoman Judy Chu at her office in Pasadena. Congresswoman Chu represents California's 27th district, which encompasses the communities of Pasadena, Altadena, Monterey Park, and Claremont. These cities boast several EB-5 projects and regional centers. In our interview, Congresswoman Chu discussed the importance of the EB-5 program and how and why she became involved in supporting the program and how it can be improved. We also discussed the major issues facing the program, such as EB-5 center failures and the questionable relationship between the regional centers, developers, and Chinese brokers. Welcome to the show, Congresswoman Chu. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be here.
Can you explain when and how you got involved with the EB-5 program when you first learned about it?
Well, ever since I've come to Congress, I've had a great interest in this. Much of the EB-5 impetus comes from Asia, and many of the investments are in this area in California. So, of course, this is an area of great interest to those that I know. And the goal of the EB-5 program is so important for America. We have to recover economically. This could be a source of good revenue.
So what is your response when you hear things like it's a program where the government is selling green cards?
I think that we have to improve the program. We have to make sure that this is a program that produces the jobs, that produces the developments that will enhance America. And when people see the value of that, the issue of green cards is really secondary. The main question is whether it benefits America.
Did you vote to extend the EB-5 program back in September when it came up for renewal?
I did. And in fact, I really think that the program could benefit from being made permanent, because every time that there's an expiration date, we have investors that are fearful of getting involved in the program. It really doesn't make sense from a long-term basis.
Now, what do you think we can do to make sure that it's a permanent program instead of just getting renewed every 3 years like it has?
I do think that we have to fix the glitches. There are far too many infamous cases of investments that have failed, and we need to make sure that that does not happen. I also think that we have to have better oversight in the program. There has to be greater transparency so that we see which regional centers are truly working and which ones are not.
And how can we have that transparency? What is your advice? What do you think? How do you think the USCIS can overcome some of these challenges?
They need to have the annual reports published. There are annual reports, but we don't see them.
Mm-hmm. Hear that a lot.
So we don't know which regional centers are truly producing and which ones are not. This would be so much better for the investors if they could see which regional centers truly have a good track record, which ones have had the businesses that have had a good rate of return. That is the very first thing that we should be doing. But the second thing we should be doing is having the business expertise in USCIS to know which investments are really viable or not. Maybe if we had those with the business expertise also, we could have a faster rate of approvals on these projects.
Now, talking about the approval process and how slow that is, what are you doing to help expedite that process?
I have looked into the program and am proposing to meet with those that are in charge. We want to make sure that we don't just talk to the top, but also to the people who are in charge of the program. Actually, those that are on top are really supportive of the program, but somehow the approvals get lost in translation. Those that are in charge of the approvals seem to be taking a very, very long time. Not only that, there seems to be no feedback to those that are putting forth the proposals. They feel that their proposals are in some sort of black hole where they never even get any feedback as to how far the process is going along and even why they are rejected if they are rejected.
Can you give us an example of a good regional center project? Do you have any regional center projects in your district that you can talk about?
Well, I understand that there have been some hotel projects that have been very, very successful, and hotels perhaps are an ideal type of investment because you can get those 10 jobs very concretely.
Now, have you met with officials at USCIS? Do you know the director, Alejandro Macoras, if I said his name correctly?
Yes, I have talked to him, but we have to touch base again on EB-5, and so I want to talk to him specifically about this project and how we could improve the situation.
Have any of the regional centers located in your district, I'm not sure if you know this right off the top of your head, but have they complained about processing times to you on their I-526 approvals and petitions?
I have gotten many, many complaints on this issue. There are those that complain about having to do some big economic study in order to prove that this project would benefit the area, and the economic study taking so long that the investors want to go away. I had another woman come to me getting EB-5 investors to put money into her groundbreaking cancer treatment office, and the approval process taking so long that the investors were going to go away. But miraculously, she finally got the approval, and so she was able to get to her cancer treatment office and this kind of new technology going.
In your opinion, how long do you think a reasonable petitioning processing time would be?
Well, I think that it's hard to come up with a number, but I do think that there needs to be timely periods for feedback. I think that applicants need to know where this process is and how soon the ending will be. And certainly it shouldn't be in the years because obviously investors will go away if that is the case.
Yeah. Do you know why regional centers are failing in California? We have examples of Victorville and El Monte. Why do you think that so many are failing, and do these taint the reputation of the program overall?
I think there needs to be better oversight into these projects. Some of the regional centers may be promising great things to the investors that may not have a foundation in fact. The investors may not know that particular projects would not be viable in America. And so the regional centers have to have a more solid reputation, and they can only have a more solid reputation if there is greater transparency in the project. That's why I think these annual reports are so important, and having the ones who make the approval process be true business persons with a great deal of expertise. That is very, very critical.
Now, do you think that there's a problem with the broker-dealers in China getting a big commission from advising their investors to certain projects? Do you see that as a problem?
I would worry about that because, for one thing, then much of the money for the investment is going towards these brokers. Not only that, if a broker is getting a commission, I wonder what they are promising to the investors. And the big issue with EB-5 is that the investors just simply lose their money. There's no recourse for them unless they get into these lawsuits.
Do you believe that with the transparency that the brokers should be letting their investors know where and who their money is going to?
I certainly think that would be a great step forward. It would be important for investors to know how the money is broken down. They're the ones putting up the money. So they need to know whether at least 1/5 of their investment is going towards simply paying somebody to find them.
Now, how can potential Chinese investors perform the due diligence that they need to protect their investments and have the best chance of securing their green card without true transparency?
They need to have the best advice possible, but I do think that the best advice would come from having more information on what's going on with these regional centers. It really is essential for us to know how the regional centers are working and whether they have integrity or not.
Now, with the Chinese market in China and the real estate bubble that's been in the news recently, do you think that affects the EB-5 program and investors wanting to come and invest in America and perhaps being too willing to invest their money?
Chinese investors certainly have shown a lot of interest in coming to America and looking, and unfortunately, that makes them vulnerable targets. Mm-hmm. They don't know America very well, so they need somebody to show them the way. And how do they know whether this person who pops up and says that they can show them the way is a legitimate person? This is the conundrum right now.
What can investors and you do together to help improve the program?
There is the annual report being made transparent. There is the implementation of business persons that are well versed in these kind of economic decisions, being the ones making the decisions on these kinds of things. There is the speedy processing of these applications, and possibly a fee if you want expedited processing to go along, and possibly maybe a penalty if there is a regional center that is defrauding investors.
Congresswoman Chu, do you think that SEC should get more involved? They already are getting involved to help make sure that some of these things happen and uphold the USCIS to expedite the process and to make sure that there is true transparency.
Well, I would look forward to any enforcement arm ensuring that fraudulent regional centers are punished. So if the SEC can provide that, then that would be good.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Congresswoman Chu.
Thank you.
Congresswoman Chu stresses the importance of transparency within EB-5 in regards to EB-5 regional centers and their EB-5 projects, and most importantly, the relationship between regional centers and the Chinese brokers that represent them. She also hopes she can help influence and expedite the slow petitioning process. Recognizing the program can be an important element to America's economic recovery. I'm Amy Rios, and I want to thank you for watching this edition of EB-5 Investment Report.